Welcome to week 2 of my Overwatch League Stage 3 key matches. There were only a handful of super interesting games last week, so hopefully this one is a bit better. Before I dive into the first game of important games to consider watching, let me give a quick explanation as to how this series works. So basically, what I do is pick out games that I recommend watching every single week. I usually give a brief explanation as to why I feel this way and give my score predictions as well. And that's pretty much everything you need to know, so without wasting any more time, let's begin by taking a look at the Thursday games. Match number 1 that catches my eyes, the San Francisco Shock versus the Houston Outlaws. Fun fact, both of these teams participated in the only 2 matches that went all the way to a map 5 last week. The Outlaws almost beat a team that are supposed to be much better than them, and the Shock almost lost to one that is worse. Because of their week 1 results, both teams have caught my attention. The Shock were off to a sluggish start in their game against Atlanta, and I'd say most people are wondering if this trend will continue against the Outlaws. Houston, on the other hand, just gave the NYXL a run for their money, so seeing if they can play well against another top tier team is something worth looking out for. If I were to predict the score of this game, then I would have to go with the Shock in a 3-1 victory. I think the Outlaws start off strong like they did against New York, but then the Shock make the necessary adjustments and dominate for the rest of the game because of it. The Shock are arguably the number 1 team in the Overwatch League right now, so they'll be an even greater opponent to deal with, and I just don't see the inconsistent Outlaws overcoming them. Key match number 2 on Thursday will be between the Atlanta Reign and Shanghai Dragons. Shanghai is coming off of a big win against the Valiant, while Atlanta lost 2 close games in a row to the Shock and Titans. I see this as a pretty big game for both sides. Many people have considered the Dragons a top 8 team in the league, and the Reign will be a good test to show if this holds up to be true. It's also worth noting that this is one of their only difficult games on their Stage 3 schedule, so if they win this one, then they should be in excellent shape to be a top seed in the playoffs. Then there's the Reign. Although they were pretty competitive against the top 2 teams in the league, they still find themselves sitting at 0-2. If they lose this game as well, then their stage playoff hopes will officially be hanging on by a thread. It's also crucial to keep getting wins so they can stay in that race to make the end of year play-in tournament. Atlanta should definitely have your attention here. If I had to guess, then I would say the Reign are feeling pretty confident right now. In their 4 games against the 3 best teams in the league, they have a 2-2 record. Not getting destroyed in either of their losses has to make them feel even better about where they currently stand. I would not be surprised one bit if this ends up being game of the week. I'm expecting a tightly contested series. Both teams are probably at an all-time high in terms of confidence, so there's a possibility that neither team will budge an inch. Predicting this game in particular is kinda difficult. The Dragons put up a good fight against the Shock twice, while Atlanta almost beat them. I can see either team coming out on top here. This is definitely one of those 50-50 games for me, so I'll just go with Shanghai 3-2. The final game I recommend tuning in for on Thursday is the one between the Titans and Spark. We all know how fun both of these guys are to watch, and it's all the more entertaining when you realize that this is a rematch from Stage 2. In that one, the Spark got swept in what was a pretty easy victory for Vancouver. While I would say the Titans still have the clear advantage, there's a chance that things end up being a bit closer this time around. Hangzhou has come a long way since that first week in Stage 2. They've improved tremendously. They seem to appear stronger and stronger every single time they play on stage. Their convincing victories against the Dynasty and Spitfire in Stage 2, as well as them blasting the Fusion last week, is proof of this. Guxue and Crystal look a lot more comfortable playing on stage with their Korean teammates, so there's no major weakness for their opponents to exploit now. I believe that the Spark are on the rise. Their chances of making the stage playoffs once again are pretty good, and who knows, if they play well enough in the coming weeks and a team like London or Dallas underperforms, then they could overtake them for a top 6 spot in the standings, and if they can maintain this position, then they'll be guaranteed to qualify for the end of year playoffs this September. The Spark are heading in the right direction right now, but the likelihood of them beating a team of Vancouver's caliber is unlikely. I say that the Spark take a map as the Titans go on to win this game 3-1. That's all I've got for Thursday, so moving on to Friday, the first game I recommend watching is the Paris Eternal versus NYXL. Both of these teams are coming off an interesting week 1. Paris seemed to win against the Defiant and Uprising pretty convincingly using their new and improved lineup, while the NYXL had mixed results. As mentioned earlier, in one game, they nearly fell to the Outlaws, but in the other, they completely stomped the London Spitfire. The NYXL most definitely had my attention. I've been told that Sabiobi was in the lineup last week because Mecha was sick, but I think New York may want to consider running SBB some more due to a strong performance on Sombra against the Spitfire. With how consistent Mecha is on D.Va, the likelihood of Sabiobi getting more significant playtime is low, but you never know. The NYXL coaching staff could have really liked what they saw from the team while running Sombra Goats. With how well the Eternal played last week, I'm interested to see how they fare against one of the league's juggernauts. Will their Sombra compositions be enough to give the NYXL a run for their money, or will the New York Excelsior overpower them using their superior talent? I personally believe that Paris doesn't stand much of a chance. I don't care if they've shown improvement. This team has never been able to consistently win games, and I don't trust them to change that until they prove they're capable of doing so. That is why I am picking the NYXL to win this match 4-0. Pay attention to the main tank battle between Benbest and Mono here. If Paris even hopes to make this game competitive, then Benbest is going to have to show up. If Mono gets the best of him, then the Eternals stand no chance. Up next, I wanted to bring up the Toronto Defiant and London Spitfire matchup. This should be considered a bounce back game for both teams. Yes, the Spitfire got a big win over Boston, but then the NYXL stomped them into the ground later in the week. The Defiant only participated in one game during week 1, but in it they suffered a tough 3-1 loss to Paris. It's obvious that the integration of their new English-speaking tank line is still a process they're working on. Hopefully they can play a little better here. This team has been on a downward trend since the beginning of Stage 2. They're in desperate need of some wins to keep their end-of-year playoff aspirations alive. I recommend keeping an eye on the tank lines. Sharek, Gods, and Ivy have to hold their own against the formidable trio of Gesture, Fairy, and Prophet, or Toronto will probably end up getting wrecked. If I were to predict the score of this game, then I would say London takes it 3-1. Don't be surprised if both teams have a slow start. It takes a team some time to get back into rhythm after suffering a big loss. In the end, I see the Spitfire getting back on track faster as they leave Toronto in the dust. The final key match on Friday night will be between the Gladiators and Fusion. Kind of like with the previous game, this one presents a good bounce back opportunity for both sides. This mostly only applies to the Fusion though. The Gladiators dominated the Fuel, who have the same record as them, and appear to be competitive against Vancouver for a couple of maps. They definitely have some confidence going for them right now. The Fusion on the other hand are kind of in a rough spot, and they have me concerned. After a tough Stage 2 where they played 3 of the top teams in the league, the Fusion had an opportunity to get back on track with a win against the Spark. Not only did they fail to secure a win, but they got demolished. The Spark had their number all series long in what appeared to be an easy win. You would think that both teams were evenly matched since they had the same record at the time, but that was obviously not the case. The Gladiators have 2 more wins than Philly as it currently stands, so this is another team that should theoretically be around their skill level. The Fusion were doing such a good job of beating opponents with a similar record to them, so if they lose this game to the Gladiators, then I will be very, very concerned about their future. As much as I'd like the Fusion to do well, I just don't see it happening. The Gladiators continue to get better and better, while Philly remains stagnant. I also get the feeling that Roar is going to crush Sato. And that is why I am picking the Gladiators to secure a 3-1 victory. Now it's time for the weekend games, and starting with Saturday, the first one I recommend watching is the one between the Dynasty and Reign. I already explained how important this week is for Atlanta, so let's focus a bit more on the Dynasty. In week 1, they used an absolute curveball of a plan by utilizing a completely different lineup in both of their games. Interestingly enough, this plan succeeded with flying colors as they took care of business against the Mayhem and Charge. Now the question becomes, will they use one of these lineups against Atlanta, or will they once again break out a combination of players we have not yet seen? That factor alone I feel makes this game worth paying attention to. If they do indeed use a different lineup again, then I'm interested to see if this strategy continues to work, or if it will eventually backfire. I get the feeling that this game is going to be pretty good. In the end though, I see the Dynasty coming out on top 3-1 in a match that is closer than the score implies. The Reign could definitely come out on top here, but they have to have a really good day. But in the end though, I feel that them not knowing what to prepare for ends up putting them at a major disadvantage. The other game I recommend watching on Saturday is the LA Valiant versus the Guangzhou Charge. Both teams find themselves sitting at 1-1 right now after looking good in their win, but horrible in their loss. With this being the only game of the week for both sides, there's a good chance that it ends up being really close, since they'll be spending all week only preparing for each other and no one else. There's 2 things in particular you should be looking out for. The first of which is how Fact Fiction performs. Will he play poorly like he did against Shanghai, or will he have a really good showing like the match with Chengdu? This is his time to prove his worth and show why no fan of the Valiant should be missing Fate. The Charge are fairly intriguing as well. I want to see if they continue to use a good amount of Somber Goats like they did last week, or if they decide to be more traditional. It's also kind of exciting to potentially watch Nero again after his good showing on DPS and Zarya. Him, Happy, and Eileen could make for a deadly rotation if the 3 of them can consistently play at a high level. Because the Valiant and Charge have their complete attention on each other, I predict that the Valiant will win 3-2 in a tightly contested 5-map series. And finally, we have Sunday. There's actually only one game in particular that really stands out for me, and that is the one between the Dynasty and Shock. This will be the true test for Seoul. How well will their strategy work on a top tier team in the league? Let's see if they're able to catch the Shock off guard since they don't know exactly what to prepare for. If they can defeat the Shock or at least keep things close, then most of their doubters should be convinced that what they're doing is a viable strategy. I believe that Seoul could find a fair amount of success using this new plan, but I don't think their new lineup tactics will be enough to completely catch San Francisco off guard. Maybe it'll work on the first few maps, but I suspect that the Shock will be able to adjust. As a result, I believe that the San Francisco Shock win this game 3-1. And with that being said, that is going to wrap up my key matches for week 2. What matches are you looking forward to the most? Feel free to let me know down in the comment section. If you enjoyed this content, then be sure to like and subscribe. As always, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.